It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, April 24th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness, the Bible history word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. Whew. All right, everyone. It is Wednesday. Yes, it's a very, very good and special day because we're already at the midweek point. We have less than a week left in the month of April, as crazy as that sounds. I hope that everyone has had an amazing and awesome week. And I can even say we have less than a week. Like 2 of those days are the weekend, which means we have like Thursday, Friday, Monday. We have like 3 days, 3 more podcasts before the month is over. I hope you guys had a good month. Just don't forget Q&A Thursday every week, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, for today's podcast, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is, It Has Been Predestined for You to Prosper. If you do it, it will work. So I've actually found a nice cafe. It's the same one I recorded yesterday, and it's open till 10. It's pretty late. It's got Sunsim's signature in this room, which I am thoroughly enjoying just looking at and reading this poem that he wrote for this cafe. But this room with Sunsim's writing in it, this is the perfect room. Like, it's not perfect because you can kind of hear like music in the background, but I really like it here. And second day in a row. I think I will be coming tomorrow again in the morning to do a recording, and then I'll be driving down to Daegu, and I'll be having service over there, seeing the brand new church that they have. Well, I'm not sure if it's brand new, but I want to see that brand new church and hear the stories behind how that church was actually made. My voice is still a little bit gone from the volleyball tournament, and it's so funny because Adrian, he's been like the talk of the town over here, all the blessings he's receiving. But he sends me a video, and it's Monday, and he's in some ultimate frisbee league, or was it Sunday or Monday? He's in ultimate frisbee league. He's playing right away. Like I just. It doesn't make me feel bad. It doesn't make me feel old. Oh, no, it doesn't make me. It does. No, it doesn't. Well, it just. I don't know what the right. It reminds me of my days in my 20s when I was like at full peak, working out, exercising, playing sports on the same day, and doing all those things. And I look at him and I'm just like, man, he has. He's at that oh my goodness, you guys this guy eats like 4 or 5 times a day. Like, we went to go to some place to eat posam. I don't know, it's this pork belly, not pork belly, but it's pork. And then you wrap it in like lettuce and stuff like that too. But the cool part about that is like, that's, you wrap it like that, but then about 2 hours later, he's like, I'm hungry. And we're already going to get fried chicken 2 hours later. And I was like full. I couldn't even eat dinner at that time. I just couldn't. I had a small snack, and then I was done. Even when I went to play sports, came back, small snack, and I went to bed. But this guy's eating again. Yeah, he's a beast. But as I talked to him a little bit more today, and I kind of asked him what his feelings were when it started off crazy. Amazing trip. He got to meet a ton of people, other volleyball people, got to meet the volleyball leaders from other countries, got good connections. He's able to shine in the thing that he is great at. And then on top of it, he's still, he's so young and, promise, future, there's a lot of big things. But I was asking the question is, on his way home, so remember I told you the story yesterday about him being at the airport. I asked him what'd you do? Like when you were sitting there at the airport, you can't check in your bag. You can't do anything. And Like, what were you thinking when you can't even check, you don't have enough money to check in your bank or anything else? What were you thinking, right? And he said, I was thinking how much I hate Pastor Sky for not getting my luggage on the way. No, I'm just kidding. He was telling me that he was so helpless that he just kept calling out to God. He's like, God, help me. God, help me. And even crying out to God. And he says that he started to cry because he was so helpless. He had nowhere else to go. And for me, is if you imagine being in that situation, it's incredible. It really is. And I think if you look at his 4-day trip, that's like an entire lifetime of headache and heartache in 4 days. And, he is blessed the most, but he went through the most heartache too. So for me, is like, I was like kind of thinking about like, thank you, God, for not letting me go through that, because I probably wouldn't make it. I'd probably get a heart attack, and there's no way I'd be making it past like getting to the point that he got to. I'm just like, wow. But he said that he realized so much, how much he's been blessed, how much God was with him. So, I hope that, one thing I did tell him was, I like, hey, don't just go around telling people everything, right? You need some time to digest. You need some time to just really take in all the things that God has done and look at the details and kind of realize more deeply what God is really trying to say to you. Because, when you go through these things, we have that passion in our heart to just testify. But like I said, testifying is a skill. Testifying, like giving great testimony, is not an easy thing. And that's why a lot of times we hear testimonies and we're not moved and inspired. But for some, but that person, that they were inspired. They went through something amazing. But it's really hard to give a great testimony. And that's why I was telling him, like, hey, just kind of reflect, look back at all the things. And when you have everything settled in your heart and your mind, then give a testimony. And I think that's something that that we all should be doing too. Instead of just kind of blah, 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 like, kind of spiritually vomiting out just everything you felt at that moment, what happens is you can actually diminish the grace by giving too much information and stuff like that too. So that is something that I was thinking about also. I told him, like, yeah, kind of sit down, reflect, see what life was like for the last 4 days, and kind of bring yourself to realize what God really did for you too. Right? And that's something I really want to talk about on my podcast for the Rebel Pastor too. I think that's something that's really, just really, really amazing. And I hope that it's something that we can all realize and learn from. And today's Bible history, when we talk about Joseph, it's almost like the exact same thing that happened. Like what happened to Adrian is almost the exact same thing that happened to Joseph. And I think, when Richard was talking, I talked about Richard's testimony yesterday. What Richard's testimony reminded me of is what Joseph went through. But I'll talk about it a little bit later in the second segment we go through Bible history. But that was something that I was really, really thankful and happy about. And being able to see our lives in the Bible is an amazing thing. Just to remind you guys, this comes out at 5:30 a.m., right? Don't worry, I'm going to get it right this time. I know today everything came out an hour early because I forgot I'm in Korea time, which is an hour ahead of Malaysia. So in Malaysia, this came out at 4:30 a.m., right? So I completely forgot I'm an hour ahead. So tomorrow it will come out at the right time. Right, so it'll come out at 5:30 a.m. in Malaysia, 6:30 a.m. here, or maybe I might bring it back to 6 a.m. and 5 a.m. is when service is anyways. Well, either way, so I am going to post that up too and make sure it's up at the right time. Just a quick reminder to everyone, we do have another live stream today for the podcast. It's going to happen in a few hours, so I'm very, very excited to watch that together with you guys. I'm all the way over here in Korea, so I did pre-record it. And I almost forgot about the live stream. So many things have happened here, right? And this live stream is not really on my mind at all, right? So today I will be talking about John the Baptist, re-looking at his case. How good was he really, right? So I want to just make sure we get more and more. Let's get more and more people to come out to these live stream events. Get more people to support. I was talking to my friend too. He does live streams also. He's a YouTuber here in Korea. And he was telling me the same thing. He's like, yeah, when I told him we had like 40 to 50, he's like, wow, that's a lot. Because live streams are not easy to get that many people. So I hope that we can get more and more people to come out. And I think when you look at these podcasts that I'm doing, remember, it's Tuesday evening in America and Canada, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And also it's going to be at in Asia time, Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Korea. Okay. And one of the things that we have to look, the one way we can look at this podcast is it is a great way for us to use this medium, to use this platform for a little bit, for evangelism for now and in the future. Yes, it's more of an intro. It makes people think carefully about the Bible. And hopefully it's something that can plant the seeds of the new history into people. And I think this is something, when I say planting the seeds, this is something that's not used very often in Providence. It's just not. What I see in Providence is a very present, what is happening right now? Can you evangelize them right now? Can you connect them right now? It's very, very a present time thing. Wouldn't you guys say? It's always about, can you connect them? Can you do this? Get them to do Bible study right now. There's not a lot of planning for the future. It's only about right now. So when I look at a lot of evangelism, if they don't study now, we kind of not throw them away, but we put them aside and we only look for the people for right now, right? And when I talk about planting the seeds, this is something that's very common in the former faith. Because, I'm from the former faith. And the one thing that I really liked was evangelism wasn't like this urgency is you have to study now. You have to learn the Bible now. We have to make you study more Bible studies every week. It's more of, we understand that people have free will. We understand that people are going to come at their own pace. Or actually, it wasn't more about we understood people had free will. It was more of we understood that people would come at God's time. There's no need, there's no urgency that you have to learn right now. And, there's no must learn now, must realize now, must come to church kind of thing. And I think Providence feels a little bit more like we push more, like we push a lot. But in the former faith, it's not about the push. It's more about the process. We let people come at their own time, at their own pace, or how we say it, we let them come at the time God allows them to. So I think it's something that we could learn also is allowing people to come at the time that God has prescribed for them, when their time and God's time matches. And, interestingly enough, we do teach it too. We do teach that we have to do things in God's time. We do teach that people have free will. So that is something that we should be understanding and honoring other people's timing and their free will too. But I do think sometimes we get a little bit overzealous and we are just too quickly into evangelism. Now, what does that mean? Doesn't mean that don't evangelize. Doesn't mean to make everyone slow. No, for the people that are ready now, evangelize them now. But it's not everyone. So we have to be very good at discerning so that the people who are now, get them to study now, but there's going to be the vast majority of people are not going to be ready right now. And it's better for these people not to be pushed into doing it into our time, but let them come at God's time. So this is why in the former faith, we always say, sometimes good job, you've planted the seed in their hearts. And that's something that people are very proud of. So I think it's fine to bring them to these podcasts or to connect them to the Rebel Pastor podcast. And it's kind of just like hanging out with other people from around the world. And that's okay. And I think the moment we push for something that's not actually there, it actually makes it harder for the newcomer to come because it's so rushed and they may not be ready for it at that time. So I think it's something that we can be satisfied. I think we should be satisfied for some people to just spread the seeds of the gospel, right? For some people, those that are not ready, well, I'll say the majority of people that are not ready, but at least spread the gospel, spread the seeds of the gospel into their hearts. And, of course, those that are ready, let them come. No need to push. I think internet ministry, social media, YouTube, all these things are going to play that type of a role to prepare people for the future. Excuse me, I just sneezed. I don't know if you guys heard it on the mic though. Yeah, my voice is still gone. I can feel how hoarse it is right now. Actually, when I was talking to the internet ministry people, there's one thing that I do remember asking them. I'm not sure if I brought this up 2 days ago, but I told them, I was like, what do you think about my YouTube channel? Should I go open or just say that, should I be open and say, hey, guess what? Guess who I am? I'm Providence. I'm CGM. Or is there no need to do that? And what they said to me is, there's no need. You don't need to be that open. Every channel has a different role. Some are long-term, some are short-term, some are for growth, and some are just to show that CGM is out there and there's good people out there, and both have the same goal in the end, and we need both. So he said that I was watching your channel. He says he likes it how it's comfortable. He likes it how you're sharing. He likes it how it's more of a sharing of faith, and that people can just come together and gather and learn more and more, right? But everyone has the same goal in the end. Because I know that some people, or maybe some even leaders or churches may feel, oh, you have to be open, you have to do it this way. And but we have to think about it like this too. When a Christian makes a channel, are they saying openly, hey, guess what, guys? I go to this church. No, they don't. It's like, hey, this is sharing of faith. But someone asks, yeah, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. Oh, yeah, I come from the Jehovah's Witness. Oh, a non-denominational. I'm Methodist, right? Like, if they ask, they're going to ask. But if not, it's just a sharing channel. Like, I even know that there's this one YouTube channel of a family with like 7 kids, and it just goes through their everyday life. But guess what? They're like Seventh-day Adventists, but it's not like that's not the point of the channel. It's to share their life, right? So it's not something that we have to do, right? So I think it's something that we have to recognize and realize is there's many, many different paths and ways to get to the same end purpose and goal. And they're like, no, you're doing a great job. Keep bringing people, keep gathering people, do it quickly as possible, right? So yeah, it's interesting. Like having that talk with the internet ministry department, it's very open, it's very free, and we're still in the baby stages of internet ministry. We're trying many things out, seeing how it works. People are doing their best. People have, and like right now in Korea especially, people have the fire and passion to start it, but hopefully we can make it happen. And in the end, my personal opinion is that just get as many people to start trying internet ministry, right? And not everyone's going to be able to do it until the end. They can't because people have to work, people have families, people have school. There's a lot of different things that go on. And in the end, even though there's hundreds of channels right now, I think in the end, eventually, very few are going to remain. I'm hoping that these channels will get supported in some way, especially since doing internet ministry is not lucrative at all in the beginning. People have to sacrifice for several years before they even have a chance of being self-sustaining. So let me give you an example. Joe Rogan. I just saw it today on a YouTube short. Guess how long it took Joe Rogan to finally start making enough money to just self-sustain his podcast? He said he was just doing it in his garage or in his basement on a laptop using a webcam. That's how he was doing in the beginning. Guess how long it took him before he started making money? So it doesn't mean that he was making zero money for this long. It's just he was losing money from what he was doing, right? Because when you spend time on this, you can't work. So he said that it took over 5 years before he made even enough to be self-sustaining. And which means that he was doing other jobs. He was a stand-up comedian. He was doing Fear Factor and all these other different things like this. But his podcast, which is now number one podcast in the entire world. It's number one podcast in the entire world. And the thing we have to recognize is, think about it. Well, if it took 5 years even to just start making some money to be self-sustaining. 5 years. So if you think about that, if Joe Rogan's taken 5 years, and that's, and he's like the biggest podcast in the world, biggest podcaster in the world, a lot of these people that are going to be starting these YouTube channels and stuff like this too, you're not going to expect any money to be coming in, or not. Money will be coming in, but you can't expect to be self-sustaining for years and years. And that's why I hope that churches and like the headquarters or IMD or other places will recognize if you really want this to work out with lots and lots of followers, it's going to take a lot of support, right? Because no one's going to be self-sustaining for years and years and years, right? So that is something that I was looking at. I was like, yeah, that's something that's so true. Many people won't be able to get into this very deeply because they won't even be self-sustaining. They won't, right? So yeah, I found that's something that I was really thinking about because we were talking about hoping that more and more people come out, but I was like, you're not going to have many come out because it's an arduous road. And like I told them before, 1.75% of YouTube channels in the world will only reach 10,000 subscribers. And even that's not enough to live off of, right? So if you think about it in this way, that basically means that, people aren't going to be able to self-sustain. And we need a lot of support. And that's why I am super thankful for everyone on Patreon and people who watch the videos and share the videos too. That's something that I'm very, very grateful about also, either way. So I hope it's something that we can really pray about more and more and understand that this is going to be something where we got to reach that million where, I really pray that regardless if something comes out now or a little bit later, that we will have 1 million people ready for him, that he can fulfill that one thing before he dies, that he can preach to like 1 million people. And that's going to be, we got to be part of that system, part of that to help Sunsteam to gain these followers and such too, or gain these, a crowd or an audience. Remember, it doesn't mean that they're all members. He wants to preach to them. So most likely these are like followers that are not members yet, but Sunsteam gets to preach to them. And I think that's going to be a powerful thing. It really, really will be. So yeah. Interesting thing is, Absolute, there's another podcast going on. I introduced them last week from Kiera and Erica over there in Los Angeles. They have a new podcast on Spotify called Absolute Faith Within. And several episodes are already up. I think 3-4 episodes are already up. Go ahead, take a look. I will leave the info in the description below. We're here to support each other. So, of course, they can't advertise my MSD channel, obviously, because it's only for members, but they can definitely advertise the Rebel Pastor podcast, the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. So that's something that I hope that we'll be able to do also. All right, so go ahead, take a look at the description below. I will leave the links down there so you guys can see their channel and their episodes that they are working on. So yeah, it's right now I've never recorded like this before, but I'm actually in this really comfortable chair, and I'm leaning back, looking into the ceiling with my mic in my hand. It's so comfortable right now. And I wish I could just take off my shoes and lie down and such. But it's funny because in this room, one of the rules is do not lie down. And it's probably because it's that comfortable that you can lie down here. But yeah, I'm very, very much enjoying my time here in Korea. Looking forward to my trip from tomorrow, heading to Daegu and other maybe drive down a little bit more other regions, doing some volleyball clinics and stuff like that too. So I'm very, very excited and happy. Like I said, guys, if you have any more questions for the Internet Ministry Department, I couldn't meet them today because I recorded way too late today. It's already like 4:40 p.m. and I was supposed to meet them at 3 because they're doing another recording. But I was doing my laundry, I was doing this and that. I got everything done, but I'm recording right now at 4:40 p.m. and then I'm meeting someone else after this. But yeah, that's just my schedule right now at this moment. So what about you guys? Just curious, how are things going on with your life? Anything cool, anything new? I love it how like Karen also updates us in the comment section below. Oh, she also had a very interesting question. And I am not sure about this, so you guys can answer it for me. Because she was asking about Palm TV or the Palm app, and she says it doesn't work on some phones. Have you guys ever gone through that? Because I never subscribed to Palm. I never did. Yeah, it wasn't something that I was just like, I don't know. Now it's free, right? But it's something that, I think it works on most phones, but she was telling me like any phones that are 2 years and older can't use it. But I think that's probably not correct, because I know people who have phones older than 2 years that can use Palm. But if you guys have, let me know if maybe there's something that is not done correctly, or a setting that she doesn't have on her phone that's done, because I find it hard that these apps don't work with some phones. Is that true? No idea. Okay. Either way. So guys, once again, before we get into the first music break, just make sure you remind everyone about tomorrow's Rebel Pastor live stream. I hope you guys will really, really enjoy that. I'm looking forward to that also. And let's really have an amazing time together. Make sure you share it with your friends and family so that we can build it more and more. It's at a good time for the Western countries, right? For Canada and America. And I hope it's something that you guys can join together too. All right. So with that in mind, of course, we have Bible history today, and health is happiness. So let's first get into the music break of the day. All right, so let's get into today's word study. And of course, every Wednesday we do have the Bible history word study. We did try this a bit before. We couldn't get that far because I forget we put in another segment, but we're already at chapter 41. So today we're going to go over chapter 41 to 45. Looks like we're hitting about a good 5 chapters every single week. So we're going to get more into the story of Joseph. And last Wednesday, I ended off talking about the cupbearer and, was it the baker? The baker and the cupbearer, they had their dreams in prison, and Joseph interprets both their dreams. The cupbearer is restored to his position, and the baker has actually got his head cut off, right? So here we have 2 full years later. Okay, so chapter 41 starts off 2 full years later after those dreams were interpreted, which means that the cupbearer, when Joseph interpreted the dream for the cupbearer, Joseph said, please remember me. Okay, that's what he said. Okay, he said, please remember me. And this is where it's kind of interesting. I think this is what I think is very interesting. If the cupbearer remembered Joseph, if he did, would things still be the same? Would they still be the same? That's my question to you guys. And I would say absolutely. That's the thing that I think, which is absolute. I think it'll be the very similar thing will happen. And why do I say that? Because what we do know 100% about what's supposed to happen with Joseph becoming the prime minister and saving Israel, becoming that person who saves his own family and all of Israel, right? That was the will of God, which means if the will is there, what does that mean? If the will is there, it's going to happen no matter what. It's kind of like salvation. When Jesus came, there was a plan A and a plan B, right? The plan A was the best situation. John the Baptist would absolutely follow Jesus, bring all his followers to him. And guess what's going to happen? Salvation, right? It's going to be done at a different level, but it's still going to happen. So there's always this plan A and plan B. And I do think that, I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? If the cupbearer did what was right, like that was the right thing to do. He remembered Joseph. I think it would still come to a very similar or even a higher level outcome. Like, I think it's even possible he could become one of the best advisors for the Pharaoh and still in the end get that position. But what we do know looking at our history even right now is there's always the ideal best way history is supposed to happen. And then there's the way that happens because we make mistakes, and there's like all these levels in between and such too. So, it's something that we do have to look at is not all bad things had to happen that way. They didn't. But the one thing that we are certain of is God's will, right? God's will has to happen. And that's something that, we don't know what the other future would be, but what we do know is the will. So if we do know the will now, the one guarantee is no matter what, Joseph is going to save his family. Joseph is going to become prime minister and save all of Egypt too. So that was something that I found to be quite interesting. So now in chapter 41, what happens is there's two dreams that the Pharaoh has, and they're one and the same. 7 cows, fat and like really healthy. Then they go into the Nile, they come out really skinny, right, and frail. Same thing, there's like 7 heads of grain on a single stalk, and then 7 other heads sprout out, which are like really like they're all wasted away. And the Pharaoh calls all of his magicians and advisors and wise men, and no one can interpret it. Then at that moment, the cupbearer is reminded of Joseph. And he's like, Pharaoh, forgive me, but there was this guy in prison, this Hebrew guy. And we had dreams, me and the cupbearer had dreams. And he interpreted the dreams, and it happened exactly to how he interpreted it. So this Pharaoh's like, well, I've got no choice. None of my wise men and magicians or anyone can interpret it. So bring this person up. When Joseph says, hey, when the Pharaoh asks, can you interpret my dream? Joseph says, I cannot, but God can. So I love it how Joseph is the one who testifies about God first. And of course, it's the 7 years of abundance and 7 years of famine. And not only does God give him the interpretation of the dream, but God also gives Joseph the wise plan in how to handle the next 14 years. So he says, Pharaoh, when the time comes, take 1/5 of the harvest during the abundant years and put them in storehouses and save them for the time of the famine. And of course, he tells the Pharaoh, but what you're going to need is a wise and discerning person to do this. And of course, who else is left but Joseph, the one who can interpret this dream? And basically the Pharaoh's like, well, God is with you, so let's give it to you. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting is Joseph was only 30 years old. Like, tell me, guys, what were you doing at 30? 30 years old. 30 years old, where was I? 30 years old, like I was doing missionary work in England and in South Africa during that time. 30 years old. Like, what were you doing at that? Were you doing anything that big or important? Or how mature would someone be at 30? But, and think about this, 30 is the same age Jesus came to do his mission. At 30 years old, the Messiah comes out kind of thing, right? And if you think about it, like this is such a powerful age. But how many people today would be ready to make history happen at 30? You know, Sasim said in the past that what age should people be fully mature as an adult and spiritually mature? Sasim said 20. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like in my head, I was like, at 20, what was I thinking? What was I doing? There's no way I'd be spiritually mature at that time. But Sasim actually said that people should be spiritually mature by 20 years old, right? So think about that. If you're spiritually mature by 20, you're still growing up. And by 30, you should be physically, mentally, and spiritually all ready to go. Joseph was only 30 when he became prime minister. Wow, like that. If you think people should be powerful at that point. And if you look at all these people, the reason why they're so powerful and wise and ready is because they were doing it together with God. They were so absolute and so connected to God. They had God's wisdom. This is why it's all possible. And I think we need to realize especially what we can do with God, right? Even at such a young age. And this is kind of why God is always saying, you know, don't look down on people because of their age, right? Don't look down on them because they're young. Don't look down on them because... you know, you think that they, you know, just because you may not have known something at that age doesn't mean they didn't, right? So, yeah, it's really amazing. Like, can you imagine Joseph being sold into slavery as a teenager? That's crazy. And then at the end of the chapter 41, the abundance came, the abundance of the harvest came, and then the famine came also, and Joseph began to open the storehouses, which moves us to chapter 42. So this famine was so bad that it reached all the way to Jacob and his family. And Jacob was like, what are we going to do? And they're like, hey, we heard that Egypt's got a ton of grain. He's like, all right. So, 10 brothers. There's 11 brothers left because remember, there's 12 altogether. And Joseph, he's, the father thinks that Joseph died, right? So he sends out 10 brothers, but he doesn't send out Benjamin. He's still traumatized from the last event. That's how traumatized Jacob is. And that was years back. And he's like, I couldn't lose my youngest son. The only child of my, his wife, Rachel, passed away when he gave birth to Benjamin. And it's the only thing to remember her by. It's that's the son that he loves that much. So when these 10 brothers went to Egypt, Joseph recognizes his brothers right away, but they didn't recognize him. And right away, boom, speaks harshly to them. You're spies. What are you doing here? And then they're like, you have any other brothers? He's like, yeah, we got 2 brothers. One is no more and one is at home with his father. And, he misses his blood brother. And he says, well, you don't come again until you bring that younger brother just to prove to me that you're not lying. And interesting is like the Bible starts talking about the brothers starting to realize that this is all punishment for what they did to Joseph. And here they are talking in Hebrew, and they think that Joseph can't understand, but Joseph knows the language, right? So he sees that his brothers are really repentant. And he's, basically Joseph's kind of checking to see how much they've changed. So he fills their sacks with so much grain, as much as they can lift, but then he puts the money back into their sacks. And as they go home, they realize all their money is still back where it came from. And, they kind of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So what happened was they go back and report. Oh, so one detail I missed out is they actually took one of the brothers and put them in prison. And that was like the collateral for the next time you come, you better have your younger brother with you, right? So they go back home and they tell their father, Jacob, like, hey, this is what happened. He spoke harshly to us. And then now he wants to see our younger brother, put one of our other brothers in prison. Then we found the silver back in our sacks and this. And Jacob's like, no, there's no way I'm sending Benjamin, right? Even Reuben was like, I'll put myself, if you take my children, if it doesn't work out kind of thing, right? Which moves us to chapter 43. Now, chapter 43, what eventually happens again, the food can only last for so long during a really bad famine, and the food runs out, the grain runs out for Jacob and his family. Now, there's no choice but to go back to Egypt. But the one thing that is 100% is they're like, Dad, we can't go back without Benjamin. We can't. And This is when you kind of get to see how much the brothers have changed, how much they've grown and matured. Because they were once so jealous and so angry and so against Joseph, they're willing to sell him off, their own brother. They were going to even kill him. But now they're doing the exact opposite. They're holding themselves responsible for Benjamin. Reuben's like, take me. And you can see that through this story that there is a huge change of heart from the brothers. And, even think about even Joseph. Joseph hasn't seen his family in over 20 years, right? Because 7 years of, it wasn't just, the time that he was in prison, the time he was at Potiphar's house, the 7 years of famine, and 7 years of abundance. And now, like, you're talking a long time has passed, right? So maybe less than 20 years, maybe 10, maybe 15 years, whatever it is. And they finally come back. And they're like, he's like so moved to see his blood family, to see Benjamin. Because Joseph has been alone. He's no family. Hasn't seen his brothers, his father. His mother's already died, but hasn't seen his own blood brother in over a decade in a foreign land. And when he finally gets to see them, he's kind of has to, go away and weep in his room and stuff also. And that leads us to chapter 44. And then Joseph sets another trap. So he fills the sacks with grain, puts the silver back in, like all the silver back. And then he also sets a trap for Benjamin and puts his own silver cup into Benjamin's sack. And finally, as they're going away, people catch up to them and they said, hey, Joseph, well, they don't know it's Joseph, like, the prime minister's silver cup is missing. Do you guys have it? And they're like, no, we don't. Please, no, go ahead, check our sacks, check everything. And then they finally find it in Benjamin's sack. And these people the brothers grieved. They're grieved. And it's quite inspiring what Judah says. Like Judah speaks in such a moving way, right? He speaks like Judah starts saying, this is what happened in the past, why Benjamin is so important to their father. And Judah says, I'll even give up myself. He talks to Joseph, I'll even give up myself. And you can kind of see that this is how Joseph sees how much his brothers have changed. And that brings us to chapter 45, where basically Joseph can't control himself anymore. And here he is in front of his brothers. He realizes how much his brothers have remorse and how much they repented and how much they regret what they did. And basically he tells all his servants to leave. And he tells his brothers that he is Joseph. Now this is where it gets crazy, because can you imagine what the brothers are thinking? Like, this is Joseph whom we sold into slavery. And the guilt and the fear remains. Like, this guy's in so much power, he can kill all of us right now because of what they did to him. But this is kind of what I was telling you, like I was telling you in the first segment, the story's kind of like Adrian's story at the airport with Richard, where, Richard, all these, dangerous goods in his carry-on or whatever it is, he's going back to try to figure out what to do. And eventually he meets up with Adrian and then was able to, Richard realized, oh my gosh, this all happened just for this person, right? And when you realize this, it's like Adrian was in the airport, had no way to go, and then Richard was sent back by these like means that are like, whoa, like these things never happen kind of thing. And in the end, Richard realized, wow, all these problems happen to fulfill God's will, which is the same thing that Joseph said to his brothers, right? Joseph's realization is the same. He said, brothers, don't worry. God has made this happen so I can be in this position to save you later. And the realization came that this all happens because there is God's will involved. And he's like, yeah, these bad things happened, but it was God's will. And he can't hate his brothers, especially when he sees the result. And basically told his brothers, bring Jacob back. and all the families so that they can live in Egypt until the famine passes. The Pharaoh hears about it, blesses Jacob's family, gives them all these carts with all these goods and everything else to bring the children back, to give them the best land. And Jacob, when he hears it at first, he doesn't believe that Joseph is alive, but eventually he realizes it's Joseph, becomes so happy, and he goes back to Egypt. And blessed by God, Jacob was blessed by God to see his son again before he dies. And seeing his son in a position of prime minister of Egypt, I'm sure his father died. Well, we'll see that a little bit later. But, he's living the proud father life, that his son became something that great in God's history, right? So that is something that that is chapter 45, right? So that's, it's a very, very amazing story when you look at this. And I think one of the most important things that we have to realize is being able to see our own lives inside of God's life, inside of the Bible, I mean. When you look at the Bible, we should be able to see our situations and circumstances. Just like I look at that and say, wow, this is the exact same realization that Richard had, right? All these bad things happened, but in the end, it was for God's will. And you realize, wow, this is really for God. You know what I mean? So it's something that I looked at and said, that makes a lot of sense. It really does. Either way. So yeah, that's something that I looked at and I was really, really thankful and grateful for. And I hope it's something that you guys like, the Bible history word study we're doing every Wednesdays. We're doing about 5 chapters per week. So if you want to know any other chapters, go ahead, go all the way back, probably about another 6, 7, 8 weeks, and you'll be able to get to chapter 1. All right, every Wednesday, second segment. All right. So yeah, we have Health is Happiness next. So before we get into that, let's get into the last music break of the day.
To live with God in my heart. The tears you shed pray all night long. Your love and light at the break of dawn. The days when you were gone. Your words stay here in my heart. I'll hold on to you tightly, Lord. Your word is your love, I'm not alone. Now even if this dark world is frightening, wind and waves and thunders crashing, no matter what, our love will not change. You're with me and I'm with you. I will always, always love you, no matter if the world forsakes you. From all the love and miracles through you, I've witnessed the truth. I'll fly high with you. I will never, never leave you, no matter if the world forsakes you. With all the love and blessings from you, I'll never forget all that you've done for me. To live with God in my heart. I will not waver to wrong thoughts. I'll stay right here where I belong. You suffered all along. Your wounds lie deep in my heart. We'll guard you, Lord, till your pain's gone. We'll comfort you, so lie in our arms. Now even if this dark world is frightening, wind and waves and thunders crashing, you, no matter if the world forsakes you. With all the love and blessings from you, I'll never forget all that you've done for me.
All right, so let's get into our final segment for today on this wonderful Wednesday podcast. Of course, we have Health is Happiness. We are doing some reruns, but of course, this information is always going to be beneficial. Hope you guys are really enjoying this too and learning how to be even more healthier. It's part 3 of injuries. Right, part 3, we're doing a 6-week segment on injuries. And today, Yen Yu from Singapore is going to do musculoskeletal conditions, right? And she's going to talk about it, the difference, like physiotherapy versus chiropractic, chiropractic therapy. I don't know what you'd call that. Chiropractic therapy, I guess, for musculoskeletal conditions. So I hope you guys will enjoy this. So please welcome all the way over from Singapore. This is Yen Yu with Health is Happiness.
Hello everyone, my name is Yuan Yu and I'm from Singapore. I'm currently finishing up my studies in physiotherapy. On today's topic of Health is Happiness, I will be talking more about the differences between physiotherapy and chiropractic, especially for musculoskeletal problems, and I'll provide a objective sharing on both sides in order to give everyone a bit more information if there is a need for you to see either one to resolve an injury or any musculoskeletal problem. I'd like to give thanks to the Holy Trinity for this platform and for this opportunity, as well as Julius and Pastor Sky for this platform. And as a disclaimer, this is general health information, general health advice, especially if you have a serious injury, please do seek medical attention. Firstly, what are musculoskeletal problems? These refer to conditions that affect muscles, joints, bones, and sometimes other connective tissues like ligaments, tendons, and even the nerves. Common musculoskeletal problems include neck pain, back pain, radiculopathy, which refers to a nerve-related condition, shoulder pain, which includes rotator cuff-related shoulder pain, frozen shoulder, elbow pain, which includes golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, wrist pain, such as carpal tunnel syndrome, hip pain, knee pain, which includes osteoarthritic knee, patellofemoral pain syndrome, in short PFPS, patellar tendinopathy, as well as ankle and foot conditions, which include ankle sprains, Achilles tendinopathy, and plantar fasciitis. Next, how do we choose between physio or chiro? Fundamentally, the key factor is that it depends on which condition you have. For some conditions, physiotherapy might be better. For some, chiropractic might be better. And for some, going to both is fine. You may want to talk to a doctor who can refer you on to either physio or chiropractic depending on where you live, as doctors can help to clear red flags, which are referring to more serious conditions, and these conditions are mainly resolved through medical treatment, which physio and chiro cannot do, or is not within that field. Now, I'll share a bit more about the definitions and the origin of physiotherapy versus chiropractic. For both, they both conduct assessments to diagnose. They both also treat and manage discomfort like pain and stiffness using non-invasive and non-surgical methods like education, exercise, manual therapy, manipulations. In order for one to go back to discomfort-free movement and being able to do what you used to do. For manual therapy and manipulations, they can include things like low amplitude thrust, which you might not see very often in social media, but perhaps the more commonly seen ones are the cracking of bones or the more also known as the more higher amplitude thrusts that result in the cracking of bones. And that is something that a chiropractor does a bit more, which I'll elaborate below. Both physio and chiro also may treat similar conditions, and for both, a number of sessions are likely necessary depending on the severity of the condition and how compliant you are with the homework, which includes things like exercise, lifestyle modifications. Each session also usually lasts about 20 to 60 minutes. For the origin, physiotherapy originated in the 1800s, where this person, known as Per Henrik Ling, he was a Swedish doctor, poet, and lecturer, and he was the one who pioneered the teaching of anatomically and physiologically based exercises for medical purposes in Sweden. And with regards to the term physiotherapy, it was coined by Edward Plater, who was a Canadian, and he was a physician, a public health reformer, an editor, and author. Whereas for chiropractic was started by D.D. Palmer, who was a medical healer who formulated the vertebral subluxation theory in 1895. The profession was actually developed by his son, B.J. Palmer, and later on for both physio and chiro, they were licensed and regulated in terms of a profession in certain places. Moving on to physio, the definition and way that it's practiced. It is practiced in a variety of settings. Besides just musculoskeletal, it's also practiced in cardiopulmonary, which refers to heart and lung conditions, neurological conditions, which refers to brain-related conditions, and also general wards in hospitals. It is also practiced as musculoskeletal physiotherapy in outpatient clinics, private clinics, and also in the sporting population, which means there's also different types of physiotherapists that focus on the above specialties. The main treatment for physiotherapy includes things like education and exercises, and physiotherapy also involves other treatment techniques, which include heat or ice pack, massage, manipulations, but they tend to be focused on the lower amplitude ones. Also, there are electrophysical agents like ultrasound and electrotherapy, which is used as other treatment techniques. When are these other treatment techniques used? It is normally used on a case-to-case basis. If, for instance, someone has a very bad back strain and the muscles at the back of their back area is very tense, it's very tight, then massage or hot pack can be used to relieve pain in the short term, and then exercises that the physio can teach would help to relieve the pain and maintain that condition for the long term because the back can get stronger. Moving on to chiropractic. For chiropractic, it is a licensed and regulated profession, but only in certain countries at the moment. For instance, in Singapore, chiropractic isn't recognized as an allied healthcare profession, hence it is not a regulated profession, but the chiropractitioners in Singapore or in the various places do go through vigorous training and education before they can practice. Chiropractic is also more focused on treating conditions relating to the spine and might not have as big of a variety of conditions that they treat when compared to physio. The main treatment techniques also include more on the manipulations, the higher amplitude manipulations to reduce pain and improve your mobility in the short term. Chiropractitioners may also share education such as lifestyle adjustment or more information about the condition and recommend certain exercises for you to do too. Moving on, I'll share a little bit on current literature on physio versus chiro and the effectiveness of its treatment. A quick search on literature shows that there's actually not many papers on this topic, and most of the papers are centered on the topic of back pain, and there is a lack of studies on other musculoskeletal conditions and a lack of recent studies too, as the ones that I could locate and I could find were in the 1998 and 2006. So these two papers were a comparison of physio versus chiro on back pain, and what the two studies found was that the two groups in the effectiveness or treatment was similar in terms of effectiveness and cost. However, do note that these two studies also have limitations in the study method, hence we can take the results with a pinch of salt. Therefore, with this information, how can we choose between the above? How can we choose between physio and chiro? Of course, it goes back to the point that it really depends on what condition you have. And if you're not too sure or you're unable to identify what condition you have, then I would still suggest that going to see a doctor first to get the red flags cleared. Then the doctor can give you advice on who or which physio or chiro you should see. There's this paper that I would like to share. The paper title is called "What Does Best Practice Care for Musculoskeletal Pain Look Like?" So this is a really good systematic review on high quality clinical practice guidelines, and I'll just highlight a few points. First point is that good quality musculoskeletal practice would screen patients to identify those with a higher likelihood of serious pathology or red flag conditions. Number 2, provide management addressing physical activity or exercise. Number 3, apply manual therapy, or also known as manipulations, only as an adjunct to other evidence-based treatment. And number 4, unless it's a red flag condition, the first line of treatment or the recommendation of treatment first should be non-surgical care first, and only the option of surgery should be discussed later on when non-surgical care, conservative care, does not work for a number of months. Why I find this useful is because regardless of where you go, whether you decide to go directly to a private physio or private chiro clinic, I think these guidelines do serve as a good fundamental that if the clinic that you go to is able to screen you of any serious pathology, is able to give you advice on your physical activity, able to give you some exercises. Yes, they use other treatments, but that is in addition to exercises or in addition to sharing more about the condition, then I think that place would be safe in the way that they practice, and that it is okay to continue going to that area or that clinic that you're going to. With that, I've come to the end of today's sharing. Hope it gave you a little bit more information on the differences between physio and chiro. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. With that, hope everyone continues to stay healthy physically, mentally, and spiritually, and we'll see you again on another episode. Goodbye.
And that is a big thank you to Yen Yu over there in Singapore for a wonderful episode of Health is Happiness. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. Great for our health, something that we all should be knowing anyways. Everyone, I hope you guys have an amazing and awesome Wednesday. Have an awesome service tonight. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow, which also is Q&A Thursday on the Morningstar Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head